Welcome back for our thought for the day. It's good to have you all back with us, and we hope you enjoy these daily thoughts at 12:30 during weekdays. The world is changing around us, and of course there are lots of situations that we read about on the news. There are lots of numbers that we see, lots of sort of statistics and reports that are beginning to concern us as we go through this. But in the midst of all of that, there are some wonderful little stories of human kindness, of small random acts of kindness. I heard of one young boy who went to all of his neighbours down his road, knocking on their doors just a week or so ago, offering to help each one of them. And those little stories that are jumping out of just small acts that mean a great deal. I'd like to read to you some verses from the book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, the first book of the New Testament, chapter 14, and a story where Jesus takes care of a great deal of people in need, and then how something small made a big difference. Let me read these verses to you. Matthew chapter 14, verse 13 to 21. It says, "When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed those who were ill. As evening approached, the disciples came and said to him, 'This is a remote place. It is already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food.' Jesus replied, 'They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat.' 'We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish,' they answered. 'Bring them to me,' Jesus said. And he told the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. And then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children." That story will be familiar to some of you if you've attended church, or even if you've ever attended Sunday school as it used to be known. But what we may not know is the setting to that story is really quite sad for Jesus. He had a close relative of his, John the Baptist, had been beheaded by Herod. Jesus, as we get into this story, is grieving the death of a loved one. In fact, the murder of a loved one. Jesus goes off on his own to be by himself, to grieve, I believe, but also just to contemplate and pray. The crowds, of course, are so fascinated by Jesus that they hear the rumour that where he is, and they go en masse to where he is. They've got their own needs, sickness and worries and concerns, and they go to Jesus because he's the one that does amazing things. And as Jesus comes to shore on that boat, he looks up and sees that crowd of people, and his reaction to them is wonderful and hugely challenging to each one of us. I wonder how we might have reacted. If anyone deserves some me time, it would be Jesus in this situation. And yet, as Jesus sees the crowd, we're told he had compassion on them. He wasn't irritated, he was compassionate. He put their needs above his. But not just that. We're told that he began to heal the sick until the night began to draw in. Jesus didn't just give them his heart, his emotions, his love. He gave them his time and all of it. And when you compare the disciples' reaction to Jesus, it's quite stark. The disciples say as the night draws in, "Quickly send them away so they can get some food." But yet Jesus isn't into sending people away. Jesus is a compassionate healer and a generous provider. He wants to keep the crowd, to care for them and love them. The challenge in the example of this story, the challenge is to remember that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that we believe in a God of miracles, that he, when we put things into his hands, can multiply them for a much greater good. We all have time, we all have care, we can all pick up the phone, and as Christians, if you're a Christian this afternoon, you should help and love your neighbours, knowing that God can multiply small things to do great things. But there's a real challenge for us here as well. Are we people who are irritated when those with needs come to us for help? Or during this time of crisis, will we be people that will see the crowds, perhaps via Zoom or some social media platform, and not switch off, but give them our time, to help them through these difficult days. And this story reminds me as well of something even more wonderful, that when big problems, small actions can make a huge difference. Much is made of the little boy's lunch that is given to Jesus for him to multiply. He gave what he could, and God did the rest. And as Christians, if you're a Christian watching this, we need to be people that do the very smallest, most wonderful, poignant acts, knowing that they can make an absolutely massive difference. One of the things we can do as Christians is pray. At the end of this talk, there will be an email address, my email address. And if there's anything I can pray for you for, no matter how small or big, please feel free to email me. If I don't reply, that doesn't mean I won't pray. I promise to pray for every request that comes in. But God bless you all, and we hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you.